the roll call, please, Meredith.
Great. Rebecca Martin,
Present.
Bob Berry,
Here.
Harriet Lawrence,
Present.
Sharon Paris,
Here.
Pat Setzer,
Here.
Heather Gambrell.
Here. Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum.
Yes, thank you. Let's proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I don't believe we have anybody in the audience or any public comments, so and I don't think we have any presentations. Is that correct?
We do not.
Okay. If we could proceed to staff reports?
Great, thank you. So this evening, I just wanted to start things off with a quick review of where we stand with our budget this year. I provided an updated spreadsheet for you all to take a look at, and I went through and I've worked in the actuals on the projects that we've already completed now, like Summer Scene and the Pop-Up Art Project. And then I have incorporated in italics at the bottom all of the items that were approved as part of your fiscal year 16 work plan. Those items will be coming to you for individual approval over the next few meetings. You'll see a couple of them tonight, but I just put them in as budget placeholders. And then the Public Art Committee has talked about a new project of buying KCPL or banners for the former KCPL light poles as part of next year's budget, but we actually had some additional funding available in this year's budget, so I did put it in here for an opportunity to discuss this evening. So you can see with all of that taken into account, we still have a balance of about $620 that's available for the Art Commission to spend in this fiscal year. Are there any questions about the budget? Okay. So next, I just wanted to give a quick update about the work of the Public Art Committee. They had a meeting last month and have 3 projects that they are working on. The first one is finalizing banner design for the banners that are around Municipal Circle, and so they'll be seeing updated designs for those at their next meeting. They decided to do 2 sets of banners. One set will be a general art banner, very similar, Bob, to the ones that you sent over. So just kind of showing an appreciation for art in the community. And then the second set of banners will be a summer or a pop-up art project banner. So utilizing some of the artistic elements from the Adirondack Chair project, continuing that so we have those to put up during next summer while that project continues then. So we're finalizing the design on those. The other big project that the group is working on is the public art plan. So we worked with the Parks and Rec department to identify a series of locations throughout the communities that would be good fits for public art. And the Public Art Committee has split up those locations and are working on putting together proposals for what type of art should be at that each specific location. We'll come back together in September and have a discussion on that, and then it will come to the Arts Commission in October for a more in-depth conversation. And then the final thing that's happening is we're taking a look at the art exhibit here in the City Council chambers. We've received some feedback from artists that the exhibit timeline is too long, that having your art up for almost 3 months is too long for them to part with this many pieces of art. And so we're having a conversation about what does it look like to shorten those time frames, to create opportunities for a variety of artists to display at a time. Maybe we're doing, all watercolors or all Raymore history theme or something like that. And just looking at how we can make it easier for artists in the community to participate in that project and not have to part with so many pieces of art at any given time. So expect to see some more information about that. From the Public Art Committee, does anybody have anything to add to that conversation?
commissioning a piece.
Yes, so we are also working on commissioning the piece of art for the Municipal Center and getting ready to put out a call for artists on that project to start the process so we can pay for that out of this fiscal year. So there's still a lot of work to do there, but we need to get it under contract this year so that we can use funding from this year to do that.
Meredith, would you, and I can't recall if we have, or the Public Committee, Art Committee has made a decision whether it's going to be an indoor piece or an outdoor piece.
It will be an outdoor piece.
It definitely is an outdoor piece, okay. And it's going to be in the front of the building?
The design incorporates places for art in the back of the building.
Okay, in the back of the building. Okay, which is really the nicer side of the building, actually.
It is. The front of the building, like all the buildings around the circle, will be pushed up fairly close to the circle for the sidewalk. And so the main gathering space will actually be behind the building. And we did identify a spot that you can see it from the foyer of the building, from the parking lot, and from the gathering space. So we're working towards that spot.
Okay.
And that's what that $5,000 is for?
Okay. And then the other thing that we've been working on is the creating some programming and educational opportunities in this fiscal year. And I'll talk more about what that calendar looks like a little further in the meeting, but we essentially have the rest of 2016 planned out, and in October we will start planning 2017. I have had some really good conversations with some additional teachers who are interested in offering these sorts of classes in the community. So I think once we get this ball rolling, we'll have a lot of interest and people who are willing to help provide artistic opportunities in town. I'm happy to answer any questions about that.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other staff updates that we should be aware of?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on, we have one consent item, and that's the approval of the minutes from June 14th. May I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So move.
A second?
Second?
Okay, is there any discussion, corrections, or additions to those minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving those minutes, please raise your hand. Okay, that's a unanimous, thank you. Those minutes have been approved. All right, on to old business, and right now we need to approve the 2017 Art Commission work plan and budget. If you recall, at our June meeting, we got the initial work plan and briefly discussed it. So I would hope that during this time frame, we've all had an opportunity to review that plan in further detail and ask if there's been any questions or concerns, address that to Meredith. And Meredith, have you had any concerns or issues?
So the only change that's in this plan that I've presented is on page 2 of the plan. It's Strategy 1, Project 4, and the Public Art Committee requested that we add the purchase of one set of banners for the former KCPL light poles into this. So if you recall, we did purchase 10 brackets to go on the big light poles. They used to be called the KCPL light poles, but the city has since purchased them, so they're now our light poles, which is great for this project because before there were quite a few restrictions on how many we could have up at what time, how many times we could switch them, et cetera. And now the city will have control over that process, which is great. Those banners, one set of 10 banners, costs about $1,500, and so the Public Art Committee has requested that we include that budget amount for your consideration. As I mentioned earlier, we do have funding available in this fiscal year to go ahead and make that purchase if the group is interested in doing that. I will call your attention to pages 7 and 8 of the work plan. You'll see that these are two budget overviews. On page 7, I went ahead and included the $1,500 for the light pole banners, and I slightly decreased the other items that are highlighted in yellow. So the pop-up art project, I took down to $2,000, which based on what we spent this year, that should be an appropriate amount to do that project. So no matter what, I'm recommending we leave that amount at $2,000. I also dropped the farmers market music down to $750, and the arts website down to $750 to keep us at that overall budget of $20,000. On page 8, and this is my recommendation if you choose to go ahead and fund the light pole banners in this fiscal year, you'll see that I kept the pop-up art project at $2,000. I took the farmers market music back up to the $1,000 we had in there originally. And then I redistributed that extra $1,000 into summer scene. I increased that to $5,500, so an increase to $500. And I added $500 to the municipal center grand opening. We had talked about having some sort of, featured artistic element there, and so to provide some extra funding to really make that a great showcase. So on page 8, again, we get to that $20,000 bottom line. So I just need feedback from you all on if you'd like to fund the light pole banners out of fiscal year 16 or fiscal year 17.
Meredith, if we approve to fund those purchases out of this year's budget, do we actually have to buy them this year?
We would have to buy them this year, and we did receive feedback from the Public Art Committee at the last meeting about a direction to move for that. So we would have design options at the September meeting of the Public Art Committee for review.
And we'd have to purchase them by October 31st?
Correct.
Is that possible?
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't take long, so.
All it needs is Arts Commission approval to spend the money, and we can purchase that within your spending authority.
Okay. Is there any comments or questions from any of the commissioners? Harriet?
Well, I do wonder if we won't want more than one set of banners.
Okay.
And I guess I'd ask Mike, in terms of the website, the cost, $750, $1,000, does it, I mean, that's an important thing. But if we're going to shuggle things around a little bit,
It would be more than appropriate, yeah.
$750 would be okay?
Mm-hmm.
So then how else did you do that?
So I also dropped the farmers
Farmers
market
market.
music to $750.
So then you put that
As
back
well.
in?
Yeah.
Because it just does seem to me we're not going to want the same banners
Okay.
up.
Absolutely.
all- I don't know how other people feel, but we're going to change the others.
Mm-hmm.
And these are going to be probably more visible than the ones around City Hall. I don't know.
So Harriet, your suggestion is that we go with the draft on page 7, which is the $1,500 number? Is
Yeah, I
that
would-
correct?
Right, I would make those adjustments that Meredith did before to, I guess, adjust back. I don't, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So page 7 is your proposal,
Yeah.
and that would allow the Arts Commission to potentially purchase 2 sets of
Two se-
banners.
So one set this year and one set next year.
Okay.
Good idea.
But that, again, I am having trouble if we approve the $1,500. I thought you just said we had to spend it this year.
Sorry, we're talking about 2 different sets of $1,500.
Oh, okay.
So
I see,
she's
you're just
proposing-
putting, okay, I
Yeah.
understand.
Keeping
Okay.
$1,500 in
As
our
the
current
budget
budget
amount. Okay.
and $1,500 in next year's budget.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Anybody else? Heather?
My hesitation.
Put your speaker on, please. I'm sorry.
That's all right. My hesitation is, I think that we may need more money for these other events that we're wanting to do next year, and I would like to keep more money in summer scene and the municipal center grand opening and the arts website, and the farmers market music. It just gives us an opportunity to do more. And I like the idea of having different banners too, but I also like the chance to do more with the programming.
The other opportunity that exists is that, like we did this year, we had some extra money. I mean, so we're just working off budgeting amounts, and so we can mark down an extra set of banners as something to bring back to you maybe mid-year to see where we stand with things. All of these are just budgeted amounts. Like with this year, they'll all come back to you for approval, and those numbers might tighten up just a little bit as well.
I might also suggest that maybe we hold off on budgeting for 2 sets of banners till we see how we like the first set of banners, as far as maintenance and design work. And, I mean, as Meredith indicated, we can always budget for more with extra money later on. I mean, that to me is something that almost is a given. But I agree that, if we can have more money for summer scene or for a big grand event for the grand opening of the municipal center. But I'll take other comments. Bob?
If I'm understanding this correctly, what we're trying to do is go ahead and put some money aside for banners out of this year's budget. So next year, we can say, well, that's too much, we don't have to do it, or we can. So that gives us the option, and while 6 months or more, even more later, summer scene may need more money, may not need more money, but we can do it out of our budget now and then hold off perhaps for the next set, if that's okay. We're just implementing it earlier rather than later.
I agree with that. Is there any other? Pat, Heather? Anybody else? Harriet?
Well, I mean, I'm fine with leaving it the way it is, because it occurs to me, the other thing we've been talking about is grants. And that's going to impact our budget for next year. So I'm glad to have them in this year, for sure.
Yeah. Pat?
When we got this a few weeks ago, take it home and look at it. The thing that I was looking for was during this year, we were able to give some money to the drama department and the music department and the art department. And I didn't see that anywhere, and I thought that it impacted in a positive way a lot of individuals, and I didn't see that anywhere in here. And so I was wondering, does that mean it's gone forever? Or do we not want to do that anymore, or what happened? Because I know the music department was very appreciative, those middle school kids. I know we helped drama, we helped art departments. Was there another one? Were there 4 that we helped? The choir. Did we do the choir? Do we do choir too? Oh yeah, we may. Okay, there were 4 groups that, and it's a lot of people that were impacted in a positive way with not a tremendous amount of money, but now that's just gone, and I was wondering about that.
Well, I'll just be honest here. I think that the city has had some concerns about funding school activities that way with this type of money. I don't think it's out of the question that we might be able to do something in the future, but it wasn't something that we put in this year's budget.
When were they gonna? I never heard that. I didn't know that.
I agree. It probably should have been more clear to us, but I'll take the blame for that because I did know about it, but I honestly didn't bring it up. So I guess perhaps we should have thought about this during the period of time we were reviewing this, and for that I'll take the blame for not bringing that up to anybody. But if you all feel strongly that this is something we should consider for next year, then I'm willing to go to bat and see what we can do for next year. But I think we need to finish up this draft. I mean, it is a draft of a work plan that can be changed, but I mean, we could talk about it all we want to tonight, but I just would like to move forward and then perhaps change it next year.
What do you mean by change it next year?
If we have the money or if we can get approval to do it, put it back into the budget.
Into the 2016-17 budget.
17-18, 2016-17 budget.
Okay, and then I'd also like to bring up again that we do not have an education committee, and I really feel strongly that we need to have one.
Well, I don't know that that would require a budget item necessarily.
So we have a budget item for it in here.
Okay. For giving these scholarships like we did last year?
So this was a topic of conversation at the joint session that you had with the city council, and then we had the conversation during that brainstorming period. The city council had encouraged you to really look at funding city projects instead of sponsoring outside activities to really work on creating this base of projects. It's certainly up to you for what you would like included in here, but they were, I think, hopeful that we would work on building what the city is doing internally, which is why it wasn't included. But there is money, the programming suggestions, so I did include $2,500 to do classes and other educational opportunities in this budget, much like we had the funding available for this fall.
I feel very strongly we should support the schools, even if it's just a little bit here and there.
The challenge is we can't, there are a lot of restrictions for how we can support, so we can't give scholarships for projects. We can do sponsorships for things, so we can't really do a lot of specific classes. We just have to be very careful for how we navigate that because they have additional funding streams that we don't have as well. So it's somewhat like we've talked about, we have to structure pretty specific agreements with them to be able to do that.
Perhaps we should go back to the schools and discuss things with like the theater department sponsoring like an intermission or something like that.
Well,
How we had it structured last year was fine, but it has to be a marketing sponsorship in order to do it. So that the city, that we have to be able to demonstrate the benefit back to the city, and so far we've been able to say this is an awareness. In your first year, you were trying to gain awareness for the Arts Commission, which is why that has been able to work.
Because we definitely have the sponsorship with the Tri-County Art League student exhibition this year again, but we're not having the sponsorships that we had last year, which that makes me a bit unhappy, and I'm sorry I didn't notice it when I was reviewing. Thank you for bringing this up, Pat, but I would like to review this and try to get it back in some form.
Okay. So we did $1,300 in sponsorships last year for each of the 4 different items. So you would just need to identify cuts throughout this budget.
Well, I think that, I think that's something that we could do under some type of task force, assign a task force to figure out a way to get involved with, some type of marketing sponsorship with the schools again. And I have no problem with that. I just think that we need to, go ahead and approve this and then figure out a way to massage the numbers later on.
So the other issue is that this budget is presented to the city council next Monday night, which is why we've been working on this for a couple of months now, because we have to have this included in their information. So if we want to make some cuts and rearrange things, we can certainly do that tonight.
Could we not put some of that discussion under the, well, let's see.
Chair, I think Becky has a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, Becky?
I understand the concern about not being able to provide sponsorships to some of the school organizations, but I have a few reservations about picking specific school organizations to sponsor to begin with, because we aren't really finding opportunities for students who aren't specifically involved in those programs. And I think finding opportunities as city-sponsored events, we can still get a awareness of the Arts Commission out there. The art exhibit, I think, is a great example of a way that we are bringing people and their interest in our city into the community more, and the education programs as well. So I kind of agree with the city council in the sense that there are tax dollars going to our schools to help fund some of these projects, and I know it's a really touchy subject, but I'm not sure that our money couldn't be used within the city limits a little bit more effectively.
I would like to make the suggestion that we take $1,000 out of the Parks and Rec art programming and use that money to do two things. First, we could give a couple of scholarships to children in the community to come to the programs that we have, and then we could donate some of that money to the schools in the ways that we did last year.
So you're suggesting that you want to, are you saying that we should have a separate line item, or are you just suggesting that as part of that budget, we think about splitting off some of the money?
It could be either way, whichever is going to be the correct way to do it. But I think that we could make the Parks and Rec programming work with $1,000 less, since we're going to be doing it at the park buildings anyway, and we can get some materials donated or otherwise, and that would be an easy place to take some money out and put it towards the schools and scholarships for the general public who may not be going to RAPAC to also participate in receiving some of that money for art classes.
Meredith, what do you think is the best way to approach this before we present this to City Council on Monday night? I mean, I'm just concerned that if they don't like something in our budget, that they suddenly cut the budget back.
I don't think that'll be an issue. I think that, so just to clarify, what I have as Parks and Rec art programming suggestions is essentially the classes that the Arts Commission is organizing that are put on through the Parks and Recreation Department. So it's not money going to Parks and Recreation, it's our budget for education and programming. So things like the wine tasting and painting event that we were talking about, all of the classes that we're offering. My only concern is that this year, just in this last quarter that we're doing, we're spending $600. And so if we want to keep up that momentum and add more going into 2017, $1,500 may not provide you with enough funding to be able to continue to fund those classes at that same level.
Well, I think then that, oh, I'm sorry, Bob.
Do we have a chance to use our next budget, which comes up October, and add to that?
Say that again.
Do we have a chance to pad that budget line later with the next budget?
So November 1st, so we already have 2 programs that are coming out of that because they're going to be offered after November 1st. So this is talking about money that will start November 1st. So this is for your entire next budget year.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the idea of sponsoring students to take our education programs, but I do think that taking money out of the education programs is counterintuitive to what we said our priorities are as a commission.
Heather, do you have any other?
I just want to mention that, yes, we will need that money in the future, but this semester is sort of a special case because I can waive my fee for the class. No?
You cannot.
No.
No. No. And this is actually money starting November 1st.
Okay.
Yes. No.
All right, well, then, my suggestion is that we leave the budget in the art programming. Maybe we could rename it. I
can call it education and programming.
I think that would be, that way it's broad enough to cover anything that our task force might want to consider, including marketing sponsorship of programs for the schools or scholarships for students who want to participate in our programs. So perhaps we could just leave that as the budget item, if everybody thinks that's okay, and then work diligently to come up with ideas to really help foster a relationship with the schools.
We can absolutely do that.
Heather, does that sound?
That sounds good.
How about everybody else?
Okay, so can I just recap for clarification
Yes.
on my end? So what we're talking about is page 8. I will rename Parks and Rec art programming suggestions to education and programs, and we'll leave that amount at $2,500.
Okay. So unless there's any other questions or changes in this draft budget, we need to have a vote on this. So may I have a recommendation to approve this budget as just amended?
Or page 8?
Page 8.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all of those in favor of approving the amended budget for a total of $20,000 and the change that we just discussed with the change in the title of the Parks and Rec art programming suggestions. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. So Meredith, if you would please make that correction and then present that to the city council.
Thank you. In conjunction with that, would it be possible to pull the board to establish if we want to move forward with banners in this fiscal year? We'll bring that back as an actual item in September. I just want to get us started on design for that.
All those in favor of doing it this year, please raise your hand. Okay, that's, okay, that was
Just a poll, just
just
to
a
make
poll,
sure
okay.
I'm good to
So,
move forward.
Yes, go ahead and,
Okay. So that will come back to you for formal approval in
okay.
September.
All right. Let's see, the next item of business is, I've lost my page there.
It's the farmer's market
Okay.
sponsorship.
Yes, the sponsorship of the farmers market music. This, we've talked about this before, providing money to the parks department for helping them finance the last portion of the music and entertainment for the farmers market for this year. We had initially said $1,000 to help with obtaining bands. We will, that sponsorship will, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, we will have a sign that reads that the band is sponsored by the Arts Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All those in favor of the $1,000 sponsorship for the remainder of this
Need a
season?
motion?
Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion for that. May I have a motion to approve
So
that?
moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of approving $1,000 for the remainder of the farmers market music entertainment, please raise your hand. Okay, so we have, it's not unanimous, all but one.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure what
So
the term.
Yay and then nay. All those opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry, all those opposed, please raise your hand. Okay, and we have one opposed and 6 approved. I'm sorry, 5 approved.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for everyone who sent those suggestions over. I've already passed those on to the Arts Commission. They're not sure how many of the dates they'll be able to fill. It's just based on how much they cost, but they're attempting to get as many nights covered as possible with the $1,000, so I'll be sure to report back on that to you all.
Meredith, a question about that. What's the remaining season? When does that go through?
October 25th,
Okay.
correct? Tuesday of that week.
All right, on to the next.
Fair.
I'm sorry.
I'd like to ask a question. This is
Oh, yeah.
My question was, we didn't have any discussion on that, and my question is, approximately what does it cost? I could not tell if that was going to take us to the end of the season or come anywhere close, because I have no idea what it costs you and how many sessions are actually left. Is there a way to get that information, to have an informed vote?
So the challenge with that is we've sent a list of, we've provided them, I sent an email to everyone asking for bands, and different performers cost different amounts, and so they're working with the $1,000 budget. Sometimes they're $150, sometimes they're $300, and kind of the spectrum in between, depending on how big the band is, et cetera. And so we don't know how many dates. I believe they had 7 dates that were still available, and so we know we're not going to get all 7 of those dates, but they're going to try to schedule as many as possible based on that budget amount.
Okay, thank you. Having the information helps.
Yeah.
Pat, I think we did at one point talk about a number, and I think at one point somebody said around $250 could be. So, I mean, that's just what I recollect, but maybe not. But yeah, $1,000 won't go very far.
It will not, but it's a great start.
And I would just remind our commissioners that music was the #1 thing that people wanted to see. So if we can provide some music, participate with the Parks Department and provide some music and clearly show that we are the sponsor of that music, then I feel it's probably well worth the money. But, okay, on to our next item of new business, which is the sponsorship of the Raymore Festival in the Park Parade. We had talked about doing a float this year, and we had tentatively scheduled to budget $250 for that event. And before we take a motion to participate and approve that funding,
Can I just give a quick staff report?
Oh, yes,
that?
and I want Bob to just chime in there too. So.
Yeah, so just for a frame of reference on the budget amount, it's, I believe, under $20 to register to be part of the parade. So the majority of this funding is for actual supplies to be used as part of the float decoration.
Bob, did you want to kind of just briefly chat about what your plan was for the float?
Sure.
Do you have your microphone on? Yeah.
I
okay.
do. I do.
Thank you.
And like Meredith said, supplies is going to be the big thing. Probably producing the banners of who it is that we're sponsoring there on the float is going to be the biggest purchase that we make. I'm not quite sure how much 2 or 3 banners would cost, 2 for the sides and maybe 1 for the back of the float. However, the plan is to, right now, I've just got the agreement from a source, my brother-in-law, to borrow his truck and trailer. And the goal now is to talk to, my plan is to talk to the high school and middle school theater departments first, talk with them, see if they would like to use this opportunity to promote whatever fall play or musical they have coming. Mm-hmm. And depending on if they'd like to do this or not, if they decline, we can go to the high school, middle school, intermediate school, the elementary school choirs and ask them. The high school band will be in the parade. So I think, anybody who was, say, in the jazz band is going to be in the marching band. Most likely, maybe not, we can see. But my thought is to go to the choirs next and see if there's someone who's interested in being promoted that day for the parade.
So your idea would be to use the truck and just put either the theater group or a choir or some type of musical group on the trailer and then just say,
we're proud to sponsor the high school theater department or the high school choir or the middle school men's a cappella group. Whomever that comes down and would like that sounds great, we'd love to do it. Those are the people who, but I would like to go down a certain tier, and I'd like to start off with the theater department and then move to the choirs and then the band.
given that this is The event is on September 24th. I'm somewhat concerned that we, have something lined up. Do you have, any thoughts that if you can't get any of those organizations or groups to participate, some other idea?
In fact, we ran into this last year.
Yes.
When we had everything in place, except we haven't purchased anything. We didn't buy the banners because we couldn't get anybody to say yes. No one would say yes, so we put the money right back in the budget.
Okay, well, actually, last year, didn't we turn around and participate as a sponsor of the,
As
and
judges.
we were judges.
Right.
So we potentially could put the money back into some type of sponsorship if we chose to do that. And are we running up against a time clock on that?
Yeah, so to be a sponsor, it potentially will be too late by the time you would have that vote at your September meeting.
Okay.
So essentially, tonight, you would be electing to move forward with the parade option. And then if for some reason that doesn't happen,
We can put the money back in
the
the
money will go
budget.
back in the budget.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? All right, may I have a motion to approve the funding for the parade entry for $250? No?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the $250 budget for the float parade, please raise your hand. Okay, that's a unanimous. Thank you very much. That's been approved. So Bob, just let us know what's going on. Okay. Just occurred to me, if for some reason you don't get anybody to step forward from any of those groups, which, Heather, here you go, we're working with them to sponsor either the theater or the music department, but perhaps you might speak with Lauren Jones, has music ties and dance ties. So if for some reason we can't get one of the school groups, perhaps he knows of a way we could get music and dance on that. Okay. Thank you. All right. The next thing on our agenda is to talk about the fall activities and events schedule that the task force talked about, the education classes.
Thank you. So there is a sheet in your packet that looks like this. It's a budget overview. So we had a small task force that met to look at what sort of programming we should do for the remainder of 2016. This is the event list that ultimately worked out the best. We were hoping to do a wine and painting party, but the challenge right now is there's not a appropriate event space in town, and so that has been put on the want list for 2017, and luckily we'll have a new building open next year that will allow us to do a lot more programming in our own facilities, which will be great. So the list that you see before you is the breakdown of the classes. In September, we're partnering with TCAL to do a watercolor class, and it is, we're providing $150 sponsorship for that, and the class will be September 22nd. And I should add that information and class descriptions for all of these classes will be included in the Raymore Review and Parks and Recreation Guide that is coming out, and then we'll be doing some additional marketing and promotion about these as well through our typical social media sites and newsletters. The next three activities you can see are Family Art Days, and Heather has graciously agreed to be the instructor for what we hope to be a regularly occurring event each month throughout the year. And so these events are priced to be $5 a person, and right now, just based on capacity in our buildings, we have a 30-person max for those. So somewhat containable as we get our feet under us, but they're designed for all ages so that families can come for a fairly inexpensive rate and spend some time doing art. And so you can see that we've budgeted $5 a person. We do provide a teaching fee for those classes, and then we'll be purchasing supplies. Long term, the group has designed this so that the art days are not revenue producers, that we're purposefully taking somewhat of a loss on those to make sure that we have one program that is very accessible to all families in the community. Hopefully, we'll be able to get into a larger event space soon for the next year, and that would allow us to continue to grow and have more opportunities to have a bigger crowd involved with that. So you can see that Heather has identified 3 different topics for those. Heather, is there anything that you'd like to add on that class concept?
I have been having discussions with other artists in the community in Raymore so that we can kind of share the classes and have different people doing different topics at different times. So should be interesting,
Yep.
seeing what other people come up with too.
That's great. So this will be one Saturday of the month from 9:30 to 11:30.
And then I would also like to say for the recycled art, if you guys could collect some recyclable plastics and cardboard, chipboard stuff, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you want those, how do you want those delivered to you?
In a box.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
So we can bring them to our next meeting?
Yes, that would be fine.
Okay.
Great. And then the next class, the printing by hand class, is a series of classes also taught this time by Heather, and there'll be 4 Tuesdays in October. There's a 12-person max, and this is for, remind me, Heather, I can't, off the top of my head, kids 12 and over?
13 and over.
Yeah, or I guess adults too, but people 13 and over. And they 12-person maximum, and it's a regularly occurring class. One of the things you'll see here is the teaching fee. So we have it structured a little differently for the art days, since those are a different kind of class, but the typical split that we do in our Parks and Recreation Department, and something that will continue for the Arts Commission, is that the instructors receive 70% of the revenue from the class, and the city receives 30% of the revenue. So that's how you cover your teaching fee. It's based on the number of people who ultimately enroll in the class, and that has been, that's very standard. That's a very standard split throughout cities. I talked to the folks over in Lee Summit. It's how they do their art classes as well. So here you can see we've proposed continuing that. And the ultimate goal is, of course, to net neutral, so that your revenue is covering your expenses for these classes, but we're still ramping up to that. And then the final class is a holiday self-portrait class, and this is for kids. It's taught by Linda Wisely, who's a local Raymore artist. And so in this class, kids will bring either a picture of themselves or a mirror, and she will take them through a pastel drawing, a self-portrait of themselves, and then we're purchasing supplies to mat the image and then gift wrap it in time for the holidays as a present to give to someone in their lives. So all of that combined, it'll cost $540 or so. That last class will actually come out of your fiscal year 17 budget, because those expenses will occur after the November 1st budget. But as we move into 17, we'll be looking at how can we continue to add more classes and make sure that the revenues from those classes are covering the expenses. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
I had one question. How much is the watercolor class that we are co-sponsoring with Tri-County?
I believe it's $30.
$30 for non-members. The Tri-County Art League members pay $25, and anybody else will pay $30, and that covers the cost of the supplies, the paint, the special watercolor paint, and the paper that Barbara Neth is going to provide to each student.
And then do you bring your own brushes?
Yes, there is a supply list. Those people wishing to sign up will be given a small supply list. It's really bringing your own brushes, water containers. But she is supplying the paper and the watercolors because she has a special technique she's going to teach, and it has to be certain colors and certain type of paper.
And when does the Raymore Review come out?
Are finalizing that this week. So Mike, you can give me a better idea.
Yes, we will have that to the printer on Monday, with it being mailed to all residents by September 1st.
That doesn't give much time for people to sign up, but I suppose if, are we going to be able to put some of the stuff on our website too, so that our Facebook page?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then also in the newspaper, they have the public service announcements. Perhaps we could get it on that section too.
Great, we can do that.
Are there any other questions for Meredith about the classes? Just so you'll realize that this is, our first attempt at doing that this year, so some of this will maybe be adjusted for 2017, and I would encourage any of the commissioners, if they have thoughts or ideas for classes for next year, or know of teachers or musicians, and we're not excluding music or theater, it's just that, to fill out this year, it was easy to do the fine arts, but we certainly want, all types of arts to be considered for classes for next year. So please, if you know of anybody or have ideas for classes for next year, please let Meredith know, or myself or Heather. All right, if there's no further questions, then may I have a motion to approve the budget for this?
So moved?
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Let's see. The next item on our agenda is approval of the 2016-17 meeting schedule, and you all have that in your packet.
Right, so the next two items are spelled out in the bylaws to be handled during the August meeting. The first one is the schedule adoption for the upcoming year, and I've provided an outline keeping the meetings at 7 p.m. on the second Tuesday of the month. The only exception to that is in February, where the second Tuesday is Valentine's Day. So I've provided an option to do that on February 15th instead. Alternatively, if you would like to cancel your meeting that month, that's a somewhat slow time of year, and we would be able to adequately work around it with that sort of notice.
Does anybody have any questions about the change of date? Is there anybody here, or are there multiple people here who couldn't make a Wednesday meeting? No, Pat, you have a problem with that. Becky, how about?
Were you just canceling the February 14th because it's a holiday? Okay.
Yes, we could certainly have it on Valentine's Day.
I say we have it. I'm an old married person. I don't need to go out.
I'm not. Yeah, there's certainly the option, however you would like to move forward with that. I did check in the rooms available for the 15th, if that's
I'm
okay.
just concerned that 2 or 3 of our commissioners might not be available on Wednesday, so I wouldn't I'd rather keep it
Up
on
to you.
Valentine's Day and just make it a real quick meeting.
And I am never wanting to cancel a meeting, so I'm just on board for that.
Becky, is Wednesday a problem for you?
I can do either.
Okay. All right, well, if there's I know Pat always has a problem,
14th.
but if there's no other issues with that, may I have a motion to adopt this schedule for the meetings for 2016-17?
Can I clarify, are we doing it on the 14th?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
14th,
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
the 14th.
With the change to the 14th.
Okay.
So move.
Okay.
A second?
Seconded?
Bob, did you just move and second?
No, I just seconded.
Oh, okay. I couldn't hear. All right, all those in favor of the schedule, please raise your hand. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. That schedule has been approved. All right, and the last thing is I'm going to let Meredith talk about.
Sure. So the last item is the selection of the chair and the vice chair. And if you recall from how we did this last year, essentially what happens is as a commission, you can, individually, you can nominate someone. And so I'll open the nominations. You can nominate who you would like. You can nominate yourself. We'll create the ballot, and then we'll call a vote for how many people would like person A, how many people would like person B. And we'll continue that process until someone is selected, and then we will move on to vice chair. Are there any questions about that process? Okay. So at this point, I will hear nominations for the chair position. And this is a one-year term, and it will start September.
We all know better now. I nominate Desiree because she is gone.
Okay. Any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate Harriet.
Thank you, Becky, but no thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
I will renominate Sharon. I think
Okay.
she's been doing a good job.
So are you are not actually nominating Desiree?
That's how it's supposed to work.
If you missed the meeting?
I will nominate Sharon.
Sharon, okay. Any other nominations for chair? Okay, I will close those nominations. All those in favor of Sharon being the chair for the upcoming year, please raise your hand.
Do I vote for myself?
You can.
Okay. It is a one-year, right?
It is a 1 year. Thank you, that was unanimous. All right, now for the vice chair position, a similar process.
I'd like to nominate Harriet.
Harriet, okay. Other nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Pat.
Pat, great.
You have such good questions.
Other nominations?
Are you retracting your, yeah?
I decline.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, I will close nominations. All those in favor of Harriet as your vice chair, please raise your hand. Unanimous. All right, thank you. So again, next year we will have Sharon Paris and Harriet Lawrence as our chair and vice chair. And that concludes that agenda item.
Thank you. All right, we've come to the end of the meeting where we have commissioner comments. Can I just go down the row here, Heather? Do you have any comments, questions, or?
No comments today.
Okay.
I've talked enough.
No, that's never. Pat? Well, I just want to say I think we've had a great year, and thank you for nominating me again. I think we all work really hard, so I mean, I am happy to be your chair again, but I want to thank everybody for participating in your own special way, and particularly the Public Arts Committee. And it's just, we've got a lot of work ahead of us, so just know that I'm the chair, but I'm going to be counting on everybody to help out. So thank you, and that's all I have to say. Harriet?
Just a big thanks to the city. I'm sorry, I keep going. To the city staff who really do all the work and buy the sunglasses and, you know, do the minutes and that kind of thing and keep us legal and functioning.
Bob?
No comment.
Becky?
No comments.
All right, with that, then I'll take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved?
A second? Okay, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting, please raise your hand. Okay.
Did Heather?
I second that.
Oh, yeah. I thought you'd, okay, the meeting's formally adjourned. Thank you very much.
Do you want this card back, or do I get to keep it as a souvenir? It is Mike.
What is that?